The Kansas City Chiefs have brought in 4 different players for minicamp tryouts, and all of them are interesting in their own way. Those players are Jorquarius Spivey, who already has a video on this channel, Joe Lombard, an offensive. Jorquarius Spivey is a tight end. Joe Lombard is an offensive center. Tanner New is a wide receiver. Jorquarius Spivey has a video on the channel already. Joe Lombard and Tanner New will be coming tomorrow, assuming that they are still with the Kansas City Chiefs. But this video is for offensive tackle Ricky Lee out of North Carolina A&T, originally entering the league in 2023. Guys, I'm just happy to be doing this video because these are probably my favorite videos to do. I love diving into stuff like this, but who are we talking about with Ricky Lee, and is there any chance that he makes the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2025 season? Well, coming out of North Carolina A&T, he was 6'5" and 1/8 inches, 289 pounds, with 34 and 5/8 inch arms. Those are long arms. 9 and 5/8 inch hands. Ran a 5.42 40-yard dash with a 1.77 10-yard split. Had a 25-inch vert and a 7-foot 10-inch broad jump. And I know that's a lot of numbers coming at you. And I'm not the biggest fan of RAS scores. But sometimes when they tell you a thing, they tell you a thing. Sometimes, if a player has done enough of the testing, it really does give you sort of an athletic profile on the player. So prepare yourselves. If you are not familiar with the offensive line numbers, what are good numbers, what are bad numbers, prepare yourselves for the score, the RAS score of an extreme athlete, the type of athlete that sometimes transcends sport and becomes icon, the way Bo Jackson became an icon in 2 separate sports because of his extreme athleticism. And remember that on an RAS score, 10 is the perfect score, and you get increasingly worse as an athlete the further down from 10 you go. So 9, not as good as a 10, 8, not as good as a 9, 7, not as good as an 8. Ricky Lee scored in his RAS 1.35. Okay, well, maybe not a transcendent athlete, but what are we looking at with him? So nothing is good except for the 10-yard split. And that's actually an elite score. So get off the ball. He's got some oomph to him. He has some horsepower off the line. But even though there's not a whole lot else here, guys, I'm going to show you a little bit, or tell you a little bit later in this video, why I think there is hope for Ricky Lee. But in order to make this point and drive it home, we're not going to compare Ricky Lee to, for example, Josh Simmons, someone who is very athletic but didn't do a whole lot of testing. We're not going to compare him to any of the offensive tackles who may or may not have been better. Juwan Taylor, fairly good athlete as an offensive tackle, for example. Let's compare him instead to Mike Caliendo. Mike Caliendo, who is an offensive guard, offensive center backup guy for the Kansas City Chiefs, entered the league out of Western Michigan as a UDFA. Remember, Ricky Lee scored a 1.35. How did Mike Caliendo fare? A 6.84. So, we are looking at a world of difference in the athlete that is between Mike Caliendo, who you saw in the Super Bowl, and Ricky Lee. But I am not here to bear simply bad news. So he entered the league, did Ricky Lee, in 2023 with the Carolina Panthers. This might be considered yet more bad news, but he did see action in 6 games and had 24 special teams reps. No regular season reps, no regular offensive reps, that's true, but he was able to make a 53 as a rookie in the NFL. He does have some potential. What has he done since then? Well, 2023, he spent his entire season with the Carolina Panthers, everything for which he was active. And then 2024 saw him bounce between the Vikings, the Browns, and the Giants, spending brief times on each of their practice squads. Yet, he saw a renaissance in his career with the Arlington Renegades in 2025. And, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but here are the notes that I have on him. 8 notes here for Ricky Lee. He got his original, not Panthers. That is a completely different type of bad. He got his original contract in the NFL from the Panthers as a minicamp tryout guy. So he has been here before and proven himself. He was a left tackle in college. So his college team, North Carolina A&T, trusted him to be their left tackle. That says a lot about him. And even in their trusting him to be left tackle, you don't understand as thoroughly until you realize that he started as a true freshman, at least as long as the information that I have is correct, right? Sometimes it's difficult to find information on these guys from smaller schools. I have to say this. I looked at some of his college stuff, and I looked at some of his stuff from Arlington, from the Renegades this past season. He looked better in Arlington than he did in college. So maybe he's not a super athlete. Maybe he is not a super scaler in that way, but he is a guy that is improving. He is a guy that has shown the ability to impress early, and that works out in your favor, especially if you're a minicamp tryout guy, and he's improving as time goes on. Now, I don't think you're looking at a world beater, right? I don't think you're looking at a guy who's going to come in and push Josh Simmons, a healthy Josh Simmons, for that starting left tackle spot. That doesn't mean there's not a spot for him on the 53-man roster or otherwise, but we'll get to that, back to that in a moment. He is someone who, despite the fact that he does not have an elite 40 time, is mobile. Remember that 10-yard split was an elite type of time. The 40-yard dash, not so much. So he doesn't have a lot of gas in the tank, but once he's off the line, boy, he's going until he hits somebody. He does have a decent anchor. It's not dropping a stone in the ocean, right? But it's decent. He's got some work to do, but it's decent. I think he is an offensive lineman, obviously not an athlete. You look at him and you think, wow, that's a big guy moving pretty fast. I think what we might be looking at here overall is Ricky Lee might be a guard or an offensive lineman, not a tackle, strictly speaking. When you look at that elite 10-yard split on his 40-yard dash, what that suggests is he's good at pulling, and he pulled well in Arlington. He looked good off the ball, pulling along the backside of the line. He is mobile in that way, and he is able to identify and hit the right guy. Not the biggest praise, I understand, but you're looking at someone who might be fringe roster, improving the 51st, 52nd, or 53rd spots on your team. You still have to have those guys. I think he is an offensive guard. I don't think you want to bring him into the NFL as an offensive tackle. The bottom line, I don't think he's a 53-man roster guy, but it would not shock me to see Ricky Lee as a practice squad guy this year with the chance to grow up a little bit. I think he's 25 at this point, so you're looking at somebody having to turn a leaf pretty quickly in order to make the investment worth it, but you're not probably looking at a second contract on a guy like Ricky Lee. You're looking at someone to make your roster better from the bottom up. You're looking at someone who is going to provide practice reps. You're looking at someone who might be on the field for special teams. I think that it's possible, if he gets another year of refinement in the NFL, he becomes a 53-man roster kind of guy. And one of the things that I said in this morning's video where I talked about the minicamp notes, I think that the Chiefs are going to be in position to trade an offensive lineman and a wide receiver prior to the season. Doesn't sound right because we have seen them struggle so much at the very top end of the roster, but I think it is right because I think that they have done a lot of work at these positions. They just haven't hit the big one. So trading, for example, trading an Ethan Driscoll the way that they were able to trade Yasir Durant a few years ago and pick up a 7th rounder that in turn became Jalen Watson. Being able to trade Ethan Driscoll for a 7th rounder, you pair your 7th rounders, you move up in the 6th, all of a sudden you've got a guy who's a starting middle linebacker, whatever it is. And that is how a guy like Brett Veach perpetuates a roster. Anyway, guys, do I think Ricky Lee makes the 53? Probably not. Do I think Ricky Lee has an outside shot at the practice squad? I kind of do. And if he is someone that allows the Chiefs the flexibility to move on from, so say, for example, Ethan Driscoll, Ricky Lee, and Mike Caliendo are on the bubble for this season. Those 3 guys on the bubble. Well, we can trade Mike Caliendo and get a 6th round pick in 2027. Okay, you take it, and then you have Ethan Driscoll and Ricky Lee on your practice squad. So that is the type of move that I am talking about with something like that. If this is the sort of thing you like, hitting a like button really does help me because it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.